probably doesn't need much discussion. One part that I did add in that section C was that part-time firefighters are not, no part-time firefighter shall be construed as a member for the purposes of these rules. And the reason that that was added was, if you go through the statute, it's all of the references in the statute to members and promotions and all of these things that are subject to the authority of the board, specifically delineates that it applies to full-time paid members. The department still has a number of part-time members, the appointment of whom is under the safety board directly, because they don't have the same requirements in essence. So our previous set of rules was not clear on that. I added some language to make that clear. I don't know if anybody has any questions or comments there. If there's nothing else on that, then we can move on. Next change was, and feel free to jump in if anybody has anything else to say. Like I said, this is an informal meeting, so. Organization of the Merit Board, Section 3D. Again, this was a provision that was discussed by Attorney Austin. I had inserted in there that we would generally coordinate the time and the date of the meeting to be the same as the Town Safety Board. And here I just put in accordance with the schedule adopted by the board. So I don't think that we set a full schedule for the year at this last meeting. Maybe we should have done that, but we can notice it up at the next meeting. And most of the boards in the town, what they'll do is they'll crank out a list of dates just to make sure for the coming year we know ahead of time when the meetings are going to be held. I assume we want to continue scheduling them with the safety board meetings. That makes the most sense because everybody's here. But this change would grant you some flexibility. If you wanted to switch it all up, you could. And there's nothing in the statute that says that we have to meet at the same time as the safety board. Any discussion on that item? No? No, okay. Next change was Section 4C, Part 3. Again, this is just a clarification that was recommended by Attorney Austin. The language in the previous set of board rules may have been a little bit unclear. We said that the firefighter had to be between 21 and 40 unless prior employment exempted them. And here we've just made it a bit more clear, stating that notwithstanding the age requirements shall not apply to a person who has previously been employed by a member of the department. That's pretty much straight out of the statute.
I had one thing that I'd like to say about that.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about that in the last meeting, I think. If you had someone transfer from another department, which a lot of times, I know they do in the police department, I don't know how often it happens with the fire department, and they don't meet this age requirement, they can legally transfer you because they're in perf, right?
Correct, yeah, if they're in perf, so that.
We're kind of limiting that if we say member of the department, previously employed as a member of the department, and not previously a firefighter under perf, or a previous firefighter.
Change the to A.
I agree with
of a department.
I agree with where you're coming from completely. I will note So as I said, I lifted that language straight from the statute, and it's IC 3683.5-12, Part A states that to be appointed a member of, or to be appointed to the department, the applicant must be at least 21 years of age, but under 40 years of age. And then the statute says, however, the age requirements do not apply to a person who has been previously employed as a member of the department. So I took it from the statute. I'm not sure how much leeway we would have to noodle with that. I don't think it makes sense either. But that's the
Almost sounds
one.
like a misinterpretation of wording. It almost sounds like a department should have been put in there, not the department, because then it's saying it's like they were on our department, left, and came back. But
What if
That's
the
how you're
definition
wording
for
that.
department was defined differently in section 2? We define department as reference here into department shall mean the town of Schererville Fire Department.
Let me see if there's a definition for department that's laid out in the statute. So the statute does have a definition. It says department as used in this chapter. Department refers to the fire department of a unit, a district, or a territory. And
That would encompass other areas then, right?
well, of a unit,
Right. In a unit, when they talk about units like with perf or impress, a unit is a governing body. So Hammond's a unit, Cherville's a unit. So if they're a member of a unit, then you would be all right with hiring them. If we use that definition for department.
then we do get into, the statute. The statute uses the word "the" afterwards, so department is of a unit, but then they use the word "the department" to mean the specific unit. Chief, maybe you can advise, how often do you get, has it happened in the past that you get somebody that's, say, 40 or older, that wants to transfer?
I don't know if we've ever had that, but the
Usually-
possibility's there,
Usually not 40, but we have taken lateral transfers from other departments before,
right?
but they've been under the age.
Under the age of 40.
If,
I'm
I-
just looking ahead.
Yeah.
I have no skin in the game.
I think it's a good question, and because of the ambiguity, I'd suggest maybe I do a little bit of research on that question, and because if we could have that flexibility, that would be great. If you get somebody that's 41 years old and they're perfectly qualified, competent, they've got all that experience under their belt, why wouldn't we want them?
Because then you're wrestling between two laws. You got the merit board law, and you got the state perf law. So what do we go with? Same way with the age limit.
I did get I think Chief provided, one of the attorneys that actually assisted with the drafting of the merit board statute itself. I've got a contact there, so that might be a good question for her.
The merit board statute may need to be adjusted to make sure that it makes sense in that context, because
Yeah, right.
it's ambiguous.
I think there's all sorts of adjustments they need to make. My question would be, how many other departments are really doing this right now? We might be one of a very, very, very few throughout the state, because we're such a small community. The big ones already had merit boards. But, we're breaking new ground here, and I'm not sure how many other communities are in our shoes. I believe you said a lot of them hadn't even adopted rules.
Yeah, there are a few that haven't gotten very far. They may have started now, so they're in that process of getting their merit boards going.
So, in any case, that's a great question. I'll look into it. Did anybody have anything else on that particular point?
Are you going to also look at the wording of the department? meaning possibly more than one department, because the is saying ours is how I'm interpreting it, but I think it should be a department, meaning more than one. Because
Yeah.
it seems like it's defining, just saying that they can only be from our department.
What about people from out of state? Do you take laterals from out of state? How does that work with perf?
They'd have to see if they'd be able to transfer all their certifications and that, and if they meet the qualifications.
Okay. If there's nothing further on that, Part D, it was the next change, and that was, I lifted that straight from the statute just to be a little bit more clear. And that was, all applications shall be filed with the board and shall provide satisfactory proof of the applicant's date and place of birth. That's right in the statute. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. The next change, you see the language got fiddled with a little bit. It was not particularly substantive. I took out a redundant reference to another part of the statute. Don't really have anything else to say about that. That caused everything to be renumbered. And then when we look at Part 3 of that section, Subpart 3, I added a section that clarified, upon completion of the general aptitude test, results shall be filed with the board, and any applicant the board finds to be unqualified shall be rejected. I think we discussed this a little bit during the last meeting. That's an attempt to, again, make the rules conform to the pattern that's in the statute. So before, what we had was that the highest ranking qualified applicants would submit to the in-person oral interviews, kind of that last tier of examination. And this came from Attorney Austin's observations on how the statute was set up. The statute doesn't really allow for just interviewing the highest ranking applicants at that stage. But what it does allow you to do is, once they've completed that first online component, and you have the scores from that, you have the opportunity to, that is the general aptitude test, that whole package. So the written and the oral component that's packaged into that first round of testing pre-interview. So the board then has the opportunity to review the results of that first round and kick anybody that they would deem unqualified based on that first round. And then anybody who's not kicked is a qualified applicant, and those folks would be interviewed at that point. So it does affect a little bit of a procedural change, because you're not just, you have to interview more people, basically. If you find them to be qualified, if you don't kick them after that first round of testing, then they all get interviewed. Are there any questions on that point?
You're going to be interviewing less people then? Because I think this round, I think we interviewed everybody, if I'm,
Yes.
you interviewed everybody
Yep.
this first time.
Well, everybody that answered the,
Yeah, everybody that completed and was qualified, everybody got interviewed. But now you're gonna have the opportunity to trim some of the, I don't want to say.
hat,
Yeah,
It would really depend on how high you set the bar for what is a qualifying score.
Okay.
So, right now, we do have I don't know if it's in this, but if you set the bar for a qualifying score, yeah, we've got it in the previous paragraph. So a passing score on the written component shall be no less than 70%. And then for the oral component, we said the scoring rubric may be formulated in coordination with, the third-party vendor and shall be approved by the board. So we had that rubric. I guess the one thing that we didn't do that we might want to do is I don't think we ever set a passing score for the oral component of the general aptitude test. And that may be the thing that we want to change. In order to be informed on that, I guess we'd have to look at, and since we just did a list, it might be the perfect time to do it, how people were scoring on that first round oral interview, and whether we want to draw a line in the sand that would allow us to weed some people out at that point. You could set a low bar, that just means you're going to end up interviewing more people on the second round. So do you want to be exclusive or inclusive when you're setting that score?
This is total with the oral interviews and the rubric, so the rubric the oral interviews may have bumped them up a little bit. So we'd have to find what I'd have to log into public safety answers and find them.
We had people that didn't do well in the first interview, and then when they were in person with us, just were amazing. So, I think inclusive is better.
Paul, can you
Yeah.
speak in a microphone?
Sorry.
Because it is being recorded, so just make sure everybody's.
Okay, I said, I think inclusive is better, because there may be someone who isn't comfortable talking to a screen when they do their first oral interview, and we had that happen to us, where somebody didn't do well in their first interview, and then they just knocked it out of the park in person, so.
Would you guys be able to, do you have the scores on file from the first round of from that scoring rubric from the first round of interviews?
Looking at because we had a total of 20, wait a minute, where we go? 22 applicants total, and I'm looking at their scores, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 of them were under 70. That's the bar I started at. 4 of them were under 70.
And that's for just the oral component of that?
This is the fit test, all the testing through the public safety answers, our third-party vendor, and the online interview.
Which is oral, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, 4 of them were under 70.
And is that packaged together, the scores? So that's both the written and the oral component?
Yes, I believe so. Because we get that fit score, which takes everything into account.
They don't break out the oral components.
I would have to probably dig in deeper, log in and dig in deeper, but just the summary sheet that we tallied had the final score. I'd have to dig in deeper and then see if I can separate the two and find out get their scores from that.
I mean, I guess an alternative to that might be that we integrate the scores and make 70 a passing score, a total of 70 a passing score. Now, I do believe that let's see, looking for the provision. There is a provision in the statute that talks about the scoring and how it can be broken down.
And which is kind of also interesting with the third-party vendor that we utilized. 4 candidates that scored under 70, they also have them listed under the fit indicator as low probability.
Okay. So 70s sounds like a pretty good pretty good benchmark.
So, yeah, look. Low probability.
Would, if that sounds good to everybody, I don't know if I'll be able to find it as we sit here today. I'm looking for it. I know there is, the statute provides
The
that,
score, 60? Yeah, look at
you
the
know, the
score.
oral component cannot weigh more than X amount.
That's from public, I just cut and pasted it on the next spreadsheet.
But if we think the 70 total is a good gauge and that's compliant with the statute, could people have a problem with that?
No, I think that's good.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that.
Okay, let me do this then. I will just note in here that right now we've got a passing score of, on the written component shall be no less than 70, and
Al Jones?
for the oral component,
He was a 60.
we'll use 70 as the benchmark, and I can coordinate with the guys from the department to figure out how to write that up in such a manner that our results look like the people that, you know, we want to choose here from the list based on the last round.
So the people you were talking about, where did they fall on the, do you know their oral score, oral interview score? You said they did much better after, I know they,
He said they didn't have the details broken out yet. He'd have to dig into that portion of it.
Those four that, that fell below 70, did they move up in the ranks after we interviewed them? Yeah, see, that goes back to Paul's comment about being inclusive.
maybe we should table it.
We can table it, yeah. I mean, there's no timeline for this. It's open-ended. We just want to make it the best we can. So I can look into that issue, and we can explore it a little bit.
Because we're kind of picking an arbitrary number at this point.
Yeah.
And
But I
the
also-
fact that we've got data that shows those four actually went through the interview process and they moved up, they're not the bottom four on the list, even though it said in the fit score that it was, you know, so that's what you're saying, the four that were shown were shown improbable, and yet
Low
they moved
probability.
up, and they're not the bottom four on the list, I'm assuming here then. So, that's, I guess, the question that really comes in, is that's very insightful and almost makes it where the statistics are proving to be just suspicious, and are they valid at that point? So,
But then again, you don't want to interview 100 people either,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Well,
But you
did you
just
see
need to
that
look at the
how
numbers
much
better.
weight do you want to put towards that, I guess, is the big thing, so.
You had a finite amount of people that you were going to allow to be on the list, right? When you put it out, or was it just anybody that wanted to apply?
It's opened up nationally,
Oh, okay.
so it's publicized nationally, so anybody can apply for this, and we had candidates from all over.
So you could have had 100 people.
We could have.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know what the ended up list was, but, I mean, we had quite a few on there, and then you get a lot that start the process and then they stop and don't complete it, so they're eliminated right away because they never even complete the whole online portion of it. So, I mean, you eliminate people as that goes on, too. Now, I think what might be important is looking at the type of scoring, you know, if you're trying to figure out a percentage, maybe it's important to see, like, the testing part of it compared to the oral part of it, compared, you know, to see where that level flexes. And we can even talk to the company if we want to see what's their outcomes of this throughout, you know, the nation when they're doing this. And
As you dig into the details, I find it now interesting in retrospect that we allowed everyone to be interviewed, and now we have our own sample of people that we've proven that setting that arbitrary number would have affected this group. So it's almost, you know, we can use this scoring list to kind of go back and see if we pick a level that would have automatically eliminated him, then maybe we pick a level at that point that is arbitrarily low. Instead of it being a 70% passing on the oral, it's got to be 40 or 50%, because then that would jibe with what we've arrived at as well. And, you know, you seem to be very satisfied that the list that we have in the rank order is correct and accurate as far as that.
The lowest score on the list was 51.
Okay.
Maybe if we could get those statistics or that data and email it to everybody.
I can forward you the general list. I'll forward that to you guys.
Sounds good, yeah.
You-
Because now that we've already done this and we've got our sample group, otherwise I'd be sitting here thinking, well, let's put together a test and see how it works out. We've already done that, so.
We can even, if you guys want to speak to the company themselves, they'd be willing to talk to you. They've done that before, and you can ask these questions.
Did you
Try
talk
get
to them?
that. Yeah, actually,
Did you talk to
Christian
them,
actually
Christian?
talked to them.
I reached out to them and
Safety?
I didn't get a whole lot of deep details
Okay.
at the time. But if we have very specific questions, that would probably be more helpful for them. This kind of segues into the next point too, so,
Can I hold on
Yeah.
can I ask David a question? Hey, Dave?
Yes, sir.
Did you want to address, I know that you and I had talked about how we determine who it is that interviews. Do we want to address that here?
Oh, okay, I know where you're going with
Yeah,
this.
Because it was just kind of random,
Well, yeah, because when we talked about this, that to put something in our bylaws about which board members are part of the hiring process. Right. To set something in stone. And if there's, and how to set that in stone, honestly, my opinion is the president appoints two, but, I think it's a topic for discussion to be in the bylaws for the future.
Okay.
This is in reference to how we picked the
Right,
two
yeah, the
this time.
selection, and
Yeah.
again,
Absolutely,
I think the
absolutely.
first
I know we talked about that
through,
after the
We didn't
fact.
even know
and-
what we were dealing with, which was the issue.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
And if we say that it appoints, there's no criteria that says how the appointment would have to be made. It could be calling up and asking for volunteers,
Well, and it should be
Everybody
left
taking
up
one
into
step
your
back
hands as the
while
president.
Tim is not
Well,
paying attention.
another observation might be the fact that, some of you guys have appointed positions, others have elected positions. It might be an idea to have one person with an appointed position and one person with an elected position.
Okay, and I'm sorry to throw a wrench in here, but I just remembered we discussed that.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, I think that, not the perfect answer, but it's something, it's an answer.
Yeah, it gives
something.
us a framework, yeah.
Yeah.
Christian, is that something you're going to want to put into this bylaw also, so that it's in there, so that it questions if boards change, that they know exactly how it's supposed to happen?
Yeah, I like the idea of doing that. The question that comes to mind is, the way the statute is written, it says that the board shall do this, that, and the other. And at the end of the day, the board in its entirety is the entity that's approving all of this stuff. So I think we are still hewing, close to those directives. I just want to make sure that there's no potential legal difficulty by limiting it to certain
Like,
decisions
I
to
think
certain
that's really,
members.
part of it was that we wanted to keep that hiring process moving forward, just because of the way the circumstances worked out.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to table it for that time. That's what, I kind of talked with Tim and said, okay, let's figure this out, because we didn't know at the last meeting, we hadn't accommodated that in that meeting, and I didn't want to wait another 3 weeks to come up with that. The only thing I knew at that time was I was not going to have the time personally to do that, and I had not a chance to talk to the other four members. And I think that in the future, as long as we can capture something that says, then no one will be surprised, because everybody will know coming up, based on the needs for hiring as that's addressed, we'll have a guideline that's, oh, by the way, we should have done this 2 weeks ago or something, so.
I'll look at that and I'll see if I can craft some language that is as legally safe as possible, but, provides a good system for doing that. On a related point, the next thing here is that's the general aptitude test portion. The next portion being the in-person interview, that's the part that examines the members pursuant to the statute. What it says is after the general aptitude test is completed, then the applicants are rated on the selection criteria and testing methods adopted by the commission, which can include mental alertness, character, habits, and reputation. That's the portion that I'm considering the actual oral interview to gauge. I mean, you're not going to pick up on somebody's reputation, character, habits, and stuff from them doing a written test, right? The statute does say, that the people with passing scores will move to the certified list. We did not, although we have that oral interview will consist of 20 questions, and that scores are signed, we did not put down what a passing score would be on the oral interview. I don't know what the results from the oral interviews reflected once points were assigned. I think that may have been a slightly different scoring rubric. Maybe if we had a little bit of information on that, we could throw in there what a passing score would be based on previous successful applicants. That tends to be the trend with the way the statute is written. Instead of just saying, we're going to take the highest ones at the earliest phases, what they seem to want to do is set a benchmark. This is what we consider passing, and then once everyone has met that benchmark, they move on in the process, and then the ranked scoring comes from that list that we produce. So essentially, everybody that meets the benchmarks ends up on the list, and then we take the list and we look at highest scoring from there, instead of having multiple phases of, ranked and weeded out and ranked and weeded out. It's kind of pass-fail until you get to a certain point and the names are included on the list. That's what the statute seems to be doing. So I did think that it would be a good idea to have an actual passing score designated for those oral interviews. I don't know what we want to make that. I think maybe looking at the data would, again, help us there. So I'll leave that in, and once we get the data from that, we can come back and discuss what a good passing score there might be. Let's see. I think the next substantive change, well, it's not a big substantive change on what will be the new Part 7 on that same page.
I did have one comment about the item
Yep.
4 after that. Just
Okay.
from the formatting there, I think that we should move Indiana paramedic licensure to the top and then drop it down where it's or licensure in Indiana Fire or EMT in Indiana Fire, because it kind of puts the less restrictive in the middle, just kind of a formatting thing that if we move the second item up to item 1. But then on top of that, as I started going through and just kind of noticed that was in the case, maybe I'm misunderstanding what this is and how the process works, but if this is the, hiring for any full-time employee, does this completely exclude, I've graduated gung-ho from high school and I've always wanted to be a fireman. Now I don't have any ratings. I can't apply for a position. I can't go through the interview process if I don't have my paramedics license or the Fire 1 and 2. That's basically somewhere after I go to high school, I've got to go become Fire 1, 2 and get that done on my own before there's even a chance to apply at Schererville. or I guess any department in Indiana.
Looks like it could be just an EMT based on what this says, right?
Well, again, I don't want to be an EMT, I want to go down a
I
truck
think every
and-
fire department.
It's actually showing that if you're a paramedic, you don't have to have the firefighter qualification, but we will send you to school, and your requirement will have
But
to be
again,
pass
in
it,
the
just
case where
like,
you're not a paramedic, you're not an EMT, you just want to, I've always wanted to be a fireman, I want to work for the department. I need to, grab a hose and go put out a fire. What's the process that we can help establish for everybody coming into that workforce? Or is there, does everybody that wants to do that, because I don't know myself, that's why I'm asking the question, does a guy who wants to do that have to go and take a trade school class, or is there, formal training for Fire 1, 2?
well, they can, some schools actually offer the courses through the career centers, or they would have to be sponsored by a different department, volunteer department, and be sent to an academy and get schooling that way.
Okay.
The reason why we do that is because of the time process, how much longer it'll take
Right, to
for
bring
a
somebody
fire,
up to
somebody
speed.
that has nothing to get all these other certifications before they get to where we need them at that paramedic level. So that's why we take the EMT, because then we can send them to get their paramedic license right away.
Well, I know, like,
within a year.
with the police academy, that you had to have certain sponsorships. You couldn't just go and say, oh, I want to be a policeman, I'm going to go pay for the academy myself, without having some connection to
But I
that.
think you're a little different, because my son did. He went on his own, he got the EMT, and he went on his own, went to the fire.
EMT, you can go on your
Yeah,
own.
on your own,
He
you can
went,
go.
he went to the academy in
Yep.
Valpo.
But if you want a firefighter 1, 2 certificate, you need sponsorship.
Right.
Because you need gear, you need someone to cover your liability. And since we run a paramedic ALS service, we have to, you have to be a minimum of at least the EMT to work here. Because the way it works at the state EMS commission, if you're an ALS service, you need an EMT with you. At least you need a minimum of an EMT with you. Now, if we were a BLS service, that's completely different. If we were a BLS service, you need a minimum of a firefighter to be with you. So you need one step below to always be with you.
Okay. Yeah, because the reason I brought it up is that I've got a friend of mine whose daughter is 18 and has been doing, fire station cleanup around her dad and everything for the last 10 years. And at 18, she's now working shifts for Linwood. And so that's where, I was like, well, how did you figure out how to do this? And there, after that discussion, she just went and kind of followed what they had done and gave her that guidance. There was that sponsorship through her to allow her to go get, paramedic training and things like that, they encouraged her and kind of guided her. I guess my concern here is that I'm the guy who lives across the street, down the street from the firehouse, and, I want to make sure that we are somehow addressing that funneling of that energy, the talent, keeping that going in without having to know a guy.
Yeah.
Everybody knows a guy, well, then you always get the back door. Oh, I want to get in the union, well, you got to know a guy. And that's the issue, is that if we can, try to figure out some means to, because I think there's a lot more people that would be interested in it when it comes to a career choice, if there was more discussion about what it took to get into that entry level, and kind of the recruiting poster for that standpoint. And that's why I was just asking if that's specifically, we are excluding it for all the reasons that the
Right,
chief gave.
and we go to the
And
high
it makes sense
school,
from a
And
we go to the
timing
high
and
school
and
for career
payment issue.
days. Right, we go to the high school for career days, and we actually guide the students when they come up and talk to us, which we guide them on what procedures to
About
take
what
and
type
do
of
all that.
things, yeah, so
Right.
you've got
We guide them to
literature,
a
you've got
volunteer
things
fire
you can go
department
and.
that might be in their area, or find out where they live and see if their
Gotcha.
department's volunteer, and they'd
Okay.
be able to get on, get all those certifications, and then start moving forward to a
Gotcha.
career
Yeah, I
department.
didn't mean to derail the discussion of this format, but
No, absolutely
again,
not.
it's that, it's that recruiting poster. Now, go Marines, I want to get in there and try to figure out how to do that, so.
And there are some full-time departments that might be able to take people on that don't have anything, and they
Gotcha.
they have the ability
I
to
think it's an
send them out.
important point, though, especially looking at the statute. And this is one thing that Attorney Austin and I discussed a bit, is what the statute says is that in order to be appointed to the department, an applicant must be a citizen, a high school graduate or equivalent, and within the age range. That's it. Those are the requirements that it
Right.
sets.
Well, that's what, when I read that, that made sense, but then when I got here, that's why that brought up at this point,
And-
that it seemed
yeah.
to be a stumbling block now, is that, yeah, that's all true, but, this is the thing that's gonna stop you, not the first item,
And we have additional requirements. It's a little bit unclear the extent to which the fire department can impose additional requirements for people being hired on. And when I was looking into that, what I found was some case law from, I think, the 80s, where certain fire departments had a height requirement. You had to be at least 5'8" or 5'10" or something like that.
Right.
And there were court cases that said, no, we're already giving these guys physical tests. That alone should prove what they're capable of. The height requirement
Height
seems
is
kind of
arbitrary.
arbitrary. And it does raise the question, anytime you're imposing additional requirements, how much of that can you really do when the statute says these are the qualifications? One thing that, I know we want to have the best department possible and the most qualified people possible. And these are all important things. One consideration there, might be, instead of making those requirements to get in the gate, so to speak, make them requirements that would give people additional points when they're going through the application process, so that adds to their score in the ranking. That might be another way of doing
Been
it.
through the academy, then they're in more of a fast track at that point. And that's what I'll call it a concern, because it was just confusing to me, is that, yeah, I'm 60, so I don't have to worry about this. You wouldn't have me anyway, even if I was 20.
So if somebody comes, if an applicant comes to the department, and this does specify that you can come with just paramedic licensure in hand. And actually, it's probably a bit redundant to have Indiana paramedic licensure and Indiana Fire 1 or 2 or Indiana paramedic licensure, because what does the "and" mean if it explicitly says on the next line that you can come with just the paramedic
Right.
in hand? If somebody comes in with just the paramedic licensure and they apply and you think they're good, what do you do with them if they look like they're a good candidate? Do you then send them to because the Fire 1 and 2, that's something they need to actually be on the job, right?
Yes, because you have to be sponsored, you have to be actually sponsored by a department to get into the fire academy. But if we have someone come with just a paramedic license, we would definitely sponsor them.
But not if they're an EMT.
No.
That's the part that, so the paramedic you can get in and start, but as an EMT, you have to have the Indiana Fire 1 and 2. It seems like, well, the paramedic was harder to get than the EMT. Why are we excluding an EMT?
Does that cost money for the department to sponsor, or is it just, you're putting your name?
For firefighter class?
Yes.
It doesn't, no, because all the fees are covered through the fireworks. So the fire academy there's no charge for it.
Why wouldn't you sponsor someone with an EMT then?
I think our reason we weren't doing it before is because of time frame, in the process, and that we're trying to get moved into the paramedic part quicker than we were.
Well, no, but right now, we're saying that we're allowing a paramedic alone to be, part of the application process, a paramedic with the Indiana Fire, or an EMT with the Indiana Fire. It seems like we've kind of reversed the cart, and, now if you come in with an EMT only and not the Indiana Fire, I would still think that certification is harder to get, right? It's more difficult to become an EMT. We're still getting, a boost out of the gate. Why would we exclude an EMT only and not?
It's a boost, but not a boost, because if we hire just an EMT, then they can't do anything else. So if there's a fire call, they are they can't do anything.
But you're not hiring them, you're just sponsoring them.
Right, but the
But
paramedic is the same thing, though.
You have to work for us to sponsor you.
Oh. So
Because we're taking on your liability. If something were to happen, the town's gonna cover it.
But the same case, then the same case would be said for the paramedic license only. That's all you can do is just the paramedic role.
The paramedic, but we run an ALS ambulance service.
Right.
So,
So you have more that the paramedics could do if they were
yes,
hired? Is
if
that
we
what-
hire, the paramedics, there's more responsibility on the paramedics because we run an ALS service, and most of our calls turn out to be ALS some way or the other. So they are getting more exposure, we're getting more use out of them. I hate to say use out of them, but we're getting more use out of them out of the gate.
But
than
an
we would
EMT couldn't fill, I guess that's the part I'm missing, is that the EMT couldn't follow and fill that same role as the paramedic in that role? Is it because of licensing and things that I'm not aware of?
Oh, yeah,
then,
it's
that-
definitely because of licensing, because the paramedic can do a lot more for patient care,
Okay,
where,
gotcha.
you know, we can start IVs, give drugs, shock, intubate, whereas the EMT is doing CPR, non-visualized
yeah,
airway. They really
non-invasive
can't give
type of
any,
things, right.
yeah, any, you know, any first round, like cardiac arrest. It's just CPR, and
Okay,
so there's patient care wise, paramedic is way more higher than the EMT.
so if I encourage someone to go get their EMT and
That's a start.
then they have to go to the academy, somehow be hired part-time or something then? Would be the role in Schererville's operation, then that would be a part-time role then? Would you hire the person as a part-timer if they came in as an EMT?
We do not at this time.
Sadly, we can't, because as far as line item concerns in our budget for payroll, it's either firefighter EMT,
Okay, gotcha.
firefighter paramedic,
Yeah, there's not a budgeted position.
just for EMT, yeah, no.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, at the very least, just to, I don't know, we may have to explore this issue further, but what do you guys think about cutting the language that says Indiana paramedic licensure and Indiana fire 1 or 2? Because if paramedic licensure is enough,
fallen out of that loop, yeah.
then it seems a little redundant to say, you can have this, or you can have this plus this.
And it doesn't matter because you were already accepted it, that's why I'm saying. You
Right.
already accepted it step one.
Yeah.
so.
So we could just say paramedic licensure or EMTB and fire 1, 2.
Yes.
Well, it's either, because we hire, it's how you want to word it, because we hire firefighter, we hire paramedic firefighters, we hire firefighter EMTs, and then we'll hire paramedics only.
Okay, so this reflects the three classes.
This is
of-
exactly what it needs to say, is what it says right now.
Okay.
Yeah, it shouldn't be changed.
And it's 3 different positions then.
Yeah, firefighter EMT, firefighter paramedic, and then paramedic.
Okay. Any other points on that one? Okay. So next change I made just pertained to when there's a vacancy like we did tonight, the statute says that the chief shall issue a written request to the board, and then that the board shall select the highest scoring applicants from the certified list. That's just kind of clarification. I don't think it makes any substantive change to the process. The next substantive change that was made, and if you guys have any comments that arise from an area that I haven't made any changes to, feel free to chime in as well. But the next substantive change that I made was to Part 6. I added a paragraph there on time promotions, because we've discussed that a couple of times. They're not really promotions in rank. The position is not changing. We're just acknowledging that these guys have been around longer and have more
Contractual
status.
obligation.
Right.
So we're just saying that that is essentially a change in status due to longevity without corresponding to a change in rank, and it's not going to be construed as a promotion for the purposes of this section, i.e., they don't have to undergo a competitive examination process to get that bump up, which is what the term promotion contemplates under here. So it's more of a clarification than anything. Let's see, what else we got? The next change I made was a little ways down the list under disciplinary actions, Part 8. So that is just, it's on Section B. That kind of clarifies the way we handle the Town of Schererville Personnel Policy Manual. Because the statute provides that there are certain things that merit disciplinary action, and it's got a list. Presumably, firefighters cannot be disciplined for things that fall outside of that list. However, the Town of Schererville also has a personnel policy manual that has a list of things that they do not consider to be approved behavior by employees. And Attorney Austin noted the way we had it previously provided. I just had, in addition to the factors listed in the statute, any violation listed in Division 10 of the personnel policy shall be cause for discipline. I reworded that to state that the policy manual, the personnel policy manual, is to be considered standard orders of the department. And in addition to the factors listed in the statute, that a violation of anything under the personnel policy manual would be cause for discipline, but that's because the policy manual is considered an order or rule of the department. And one of the things in the statute that it says that a firefighter can be disciplined for is a violation of orders or rules of the department. So we're kind of, maybe it's a little,
Additive to
yeah,
what is
we're just subsuming those, making clear that those are orders of the department, so that if somebody violates the Schererville town policies, we're very clear that they can be disciplined because that is an order of the department.
Okay. I do have one point of clarification for that 8. Under your disciplinary actions, A, you referenced the procedure. I did not look up IC 36-835-17, but under item B, we say, in addition to the factors listed in IC 36-835-17B. So is B the actual point? Is it 17? Should those be the same, or are they actually different from the A to the B designation?
So 17, let me just flip to it right here. 17 is the general statute that addresses disciplinary, here we go. Disciplinary actions, grounds, hearings, notice, and it gives all the procedures. I left out a hyphen there, so I can fix that. But disciplinary actions shall be governed in substance and procedure by that section 17. So a lot of that addresses the procedural element, which is laid out there. Now, when we come down to, where'd you see the?
In item B, where it says, in addition to the factors listed in
Oh, yeah.
IC B,
So section B is the particular portion of that statute
Okay.
that says a member may be disciplined by the commission if, and that provides the list that says
are the
convicted of a
specific
crime.
details
Those are-
then,
Right.
okay.
So one just references the procedure, one references the substance of
Okay.
grounds for discipline.
Yeah, just when I read that, it's, again, I didn't look it up, but I thought, well, if that was B, then maybe we should have B on the A category as well, but you're referencing it as the general
Yeah.
subset.
It's a little bit
and then a
broader,
more
'cause-
specific thing, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But I think that's a workaround so that we can get the Schererville town policies in there, because it just doesn't make much sense, if somebody violates town policies, for them to then come in here and try to make an argument that,
you can't
well, the
fire me for
statute
that.
says you can't fire me for that. Yeah, but the town's got its policies too. The other change that I made in that section is down in C. Well, actually, I guess I would also point out that disciplinary action, so I think originally, I don't know if it shows up here for some reason. Disciplinary action may result in suspension, demotion, and dismissal. So the original language there said reprimand, and Attorney Austin did point out that reprimand is a remedy that the chief can give, but the statute actually doesn't really allow the board to just give a reprimand. If it's something that would merit a reprimand, that's just left to chief to do. It really doesn't rise to the level of this board considering it. This board gets to dole out suspensions, dismissals, and demotions. Anyway, working back down to Part C there.
Well, I'd have just a clarification on that with the suspensions. I understand reprimand instantly, you know, you've got your warning note, your warning letter. But now with the suspension, does the chief have authority to immediately suspend someone? You know, boom, we don't have to wait 3 weeks or a month for the next meeting?
The chief does have authority to suspend, I believe it's 5 days or less.
Yep.
And then if it's more than 5 days, then
Okay,
it has to come
goes
before the board.
Okay? All right.
I added a little bit of language in C, just say that the member may appeal disciplinary decisions by making a request for review to the board. I don't think that's a substantive change. That just clarifies the process, how it's contemplated under the statute. And it looks like I left out another hyphen down
Christian?
there, so I'll fix that. Yeah.
I haven't, the policy, does it say 5 days or 40 hours?
It's 5 working
So the-
days.
5 working days, okay.
Yeah, it's 5 working days, and I believe what you're referring to is, there's a calculation for how that's come up with.
Well, it does
In the-
just
in the-
say
in the
that
past,
a
there was some-
working day shall be defined as a period of 8 hours, so.
Well, then,
Right, and
we
that's the
work
thing, is
24
we're
hours.
24 hours, well, the staff is just 24-hour shifts.
So we're so suspension our guys for a shift and a half.
Yeah, that,
Yeah, so you have to come in and
State statute.
stop them from working 8
That's
hours.
what-
Yeah, I think that's governed by the statute.
I think
I know
it's
there was
covered
some,
by
there was some
state statute,
discussion,
isn't it?
is like, well, no, it's 5 days. I'm like, well, is it 5 days or 40 hours? I'm like, 5 days.
Right.
So that's why, that was the confusion.
3.519.
You had to run into under state statute though, right, before?
So here's
We've always had
what,
follows the 40 hours, so it was a day and a half, basically.
here's what the statute says in particular. It's under Section 19 of the Merit Board Statute. In addition to the powers of the commission, the chief of the department may, without a hearing, reprimand or suspend without pay a member including, for a maximum of 5 working days. For the purpose of this subsection, 8 hours of paid time constitutes 1 working day. So that's fixed in the statute.
Okay.
Can't do anything about that.
So day and a half,
Statute.
pretty
So,
much.
yeah, so it basically means 40 hours, right?
Okay.
Now, yeah, that seems pretty straightforward. Let's see. I added a little bit of language under Section 10, performance ratings, to just clarify that probationary members are also subject to the 6-month performance reviews. Seems pretty self-explanatory. and I struck some language in 14 concerning sending copies of the rules to the town council and the clerk, because the statute doesn't require that. Doesn't mean we can't, but we don't have to have that in there. Those were my changes. It sounds like, with the exception of a few items that we discussed in detail, I could incorporate most of those in a proposed draft. We can look into these other items. I can report on them the next time we come back. I guess the real question would be whether anybody had any of their own changes to propose or ideas concerning any of the rules that we hadn't discussed.
I've addressed everything that I had questions on.
Yeah, and I think, and I believe that we have this whole appointment and whatever thing. I think it should come from the president when it comes to, back to our topic. I think that's the easiest, cleanest thing.
Yeah, and then, again, there's no established rules as to how that's done, but
Yep.
then, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it starts with you pick two people, the one can't do it, you move on down.
Right.
Okay. I can put that into the draft. So I think the biggest question to look into is just how we want to revisit the scoring, right? And what that does for us, and we'll await the data.
Yeah, if we get some
from the
more
department.
information on that, we can just do a little email exchange and place into that a specific threshold. 'Cause I don't want to see this drag on for a month or 2 months before we're able to post a revision.
Sure. Once we get the copy that we're good with, we've incorporated the changes, then, like we did the last time, we vote to approve it, and then we notice it for the month after that for a public hearing. And if nobody shows up to say anything about it, then we just do the final approval at that point.
Right.
Anything else?
Well, I just have a question. Chief, you had provided us a list of active personnel and their seniority. That's now been changed, 3 or 4 of the names are different and removed and added since that. Could you provide another updated list of that?
List of all our current employees,
Yes.
rank, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you had emailed that out about this time last year. Yeah, the full-time service and rank spreadsheet you had done. As I was going through here, I noticed that there's some names that we were familiar with that are no longer there, and some that we've added, so.
Absolutely.
All right, I've got nothing more. Gentlemen? All right, we are adjourned.
It
Thanks.
for me. All right.